Good morning. Manchester City crash out of the Champions League. A little bit like deja vu, isn't it? And Manchester City fans, I suppose, will be asking, what went wrong? Crashing out, of course, at the same stage for a third year in a row now. And to be honest, the answer to that is everything. I mean, there was some questionable tactics, goalkeeping errors, Sterling missing that open goal, and even some VAR controversy thrown in there for good measure. Now, they lost 3-1 to Lyon, a side who finished 7th in the French top flight last season. And Austin Hillwood was watching last night's drama. Now, that Sterling miss does not get easier to watch, I can tell you. Now, Rangers could go top of the Scottish Premiership later when they visit Livingston. A draw would actually be enough. Horrible. That's how Exeter's director of rugby, Rob Baxter, described watching the Premiership leaders return to action without any fans there, and he's urged the government to give the go-ahead for pilot events with crowds in rugby union. However, there was... Catalan Dragons flew in from France yesterday after being given a special exemption to travel to the UK. That's despite those quarantine restrictions. And they left a few hours later with a 58-0 win over Wakefield to go joint top of the Super League. Now over to Sheffield and Snooker's World Championship, where Ronnie O'Sullivan is still on track to claim that elusive 6th title. He leads Kyren Wilson heading into the final day at the Crucible. Lewis Hamilton will start on pole position later today in the Spanish Grand Prix. That's his 92nd career pole, if you're still counting. Now, cricket fans will be paying rather close attention to Susan's weather forecast this morning. Now, England could really do with a bit of sunshine in Southampton later after more bad weather wiped out the third day against Pakistan. Their hopes of victory on that. Now, victories, defeats and extreme emotions, all part of an elite athlete's career. But for Olympic hopeful Kimberly Woods, there have been nearly as many battles to overcome outside of her career. Kimberly has overcome childhood bullying and mental health issues in her 10-year journey to Team GB. BBC Olympic sports reporter Nick Hope has been to meet her. Thank you so much to Kimberly Woods for opening up about her struggles with mental health. Hopefully somebody listening to that this morning can be inspired by her story. That's all for me for now. I'll be back with more for you later, Roger. It's the third year in a row they're feeling this pain, unfortunately, Tina. Yeah, crashing out of the Champions League at the quarter-final stage once again, as Kevin De Bruyne put it. A different year, same stuff. This time they were beaten 3-1 by Lyon. And City fans may have a few questions this morning. I mean, how did Sterling miss that open goal? How did keeper Ederson let that third one in? And did Pep Guardiola just get his tactics all wrong? Perhaps Austin Hillwood has the answers. Well, speaking of horrible, that's exactly how Exeter's director of rugby, Rob Baxter, described watching the Premiership leaders return to action without any fans present. And he's now urging the government to give the go-ahead for pilot events with crowds in rugby union. Catalan Dragons flew in from France yesterday after being given a special exemption to travel to the UK despite those quarantine restrictions. And they left just a few hours later with a 58-0 win over Wakefield to go joint top of the Super League. They scored. Now over to Sheffield and Snooker's World Championship, where Ronnie O'Sullivan is still on track to claim that elusive 6th title. He leads Kyren Wilson heading into the final day at the Crucible. Will Hearn, that's just after 8:30. And now Lewis Hamilton will start on pole position later today in the Spanish Grand Prix. If you're counting, that's his 92nd career pole. Now, I know that cricket fans will be paying very close attention to Susan's weather forecast this morning because England could really do with a little bit of sunshine in Southampton today after more bad weather wiped out the third day against Pakistan. Now, most sport, as we know, has been going ahead behind closed doors with no fans present, given, of course, the ongoing pandemic. But for non-league football clubs, well, this has left them in dire financial straits. And they're now calling on the government to allow spectators to return in time for the new season. Otherwise, some of them face going out of business. With more on this, here's Patrick Geary. It's interesting. The former England manager Sam Allardyce recently wrote an article just on this topic, talking about the fact that when we talk about football, we focus so much on the Premier League and the billions of pounds that are spent there. And actually, for a lot of professional players, they're just living month to month like anyone else. So it's hard to imagine if fans don't get back in soon, how some of them will survive. It just seems very, very sad, Roger and Tina.
City in the Champions League.
Yeah, Roger, what is it they say, third time's the charm? Not so for City. This is the third year in a row that they've exited the Champions League in the quarter-final stages. They were beaten this time 3-1 by Lyon, and you can almost pinpoint the moment that it all went wrong. Well, City fans will be describing how they're feeling right now as horrible, and that is how Exeter's director of rugby, Rob Baxter, described watching the Premiership leaders return to action without any fans there. He's now urging the government to give the go-ahead for pilot events with crowds in rugby union. There was no... Well, fans have returned to the Crucible for Snooker's World Championship, where Ronnie O'Sullivan is still on track to claim that elusive 6th title. He leads Kyron Wilson heading into the final day at the Crucible. Wilson, delighted to say that joining us now is the chairman. Brilliant. So, as I say, that starts at 1:30 this afternoon. It begins on BBC Two. I am looking forward to it. I can imagine this is going to be another classic.
We're very
From Susan there, it's not working. This is the only sunshine I can bring you, I'm afraid. I can't bring Manchester City fans any sunshine either. Oh, it's just been a dreadful evening for them, really. What's that saying again? Third time's the charm, Sean. Well, it wasn't for Manchester City. This is the third year in a row that they've exited the Champions League in the quarter-finals. A goalkeeping error, missing an open goal. We even had some VAR controversy thrown in for good measure. That saw them lose 3-1 to Lyon, a side who actually finished 7th in the French top flight last season. Austin Hillwood was watching the drama unfold. I can tell you that Sterling miss doesn't get any easier to watch no matter how many times you see it. Let's move on from the riches of the Champions League then to worrying times in non-league football. The pandemic means clubs at the lower levels of the game have really struggled with no matchday revenue from ticket sales. So now some are calling on the government to allow supporters back in time for the new season, or risk teams going out of business altogether. Patrick Geary has the details. Well, there should be plenty of fans in the stands at the Crucible later, around 300 of them actually, and they could be in for a real treat at Snooker's World Championship final, with Ronnie O'Sullivan on track to claim a 6th title.